I was 17 years old the day I learned what it meant to be truly hunted. 17 when I discovered that my blood, silver, sacred, and damned, made me worth more dead than alive, that a girl's life could be measured not in years but in the bounty posted at every crossroads. I remember the sound, not of coin this time, but of bowstrings, 7 of them, pulled taut in unison by men who believed killing me would save the kingdom. And I remember thinking, with the strange clarity that comes with absolute terror, that this was the sound of my death. My name is Elara, and this is the story of how I went from prey to power. From the Omega girl the kingdom wanted buried in an unmarked grave to the queen they never saw coming. But let me take you back to the beginning. To the moment everything changed. To the day a stranger took 7 arrows meant for me. The world ended for me on a Thursday. I know that's a strange thing to remember, what day of the week it was, but when you're 17 years old and your entire existence has been one long desperate flight from death, your mind latches onto the smallest, most meaningless details. Thursday. It was autumn. The kind of cold, relentless autumn that turns leaves to rust and makes everything smell like smoke and decay. There had been no celebration that morning, no acknowledgement at all that 17 years ago I had entered this world loved and wanted. My mother had died bringing me into it, and apparently that made my birthday something shameful, a reminder of loss rather than a celebration of life. I'd stopped expecting anything years ago. After Mima died and the running began, birthdays became just another day of survival and silence. But somehow, some childish part of me had hoped, had thought maybe this year, in this village, hidden deep in the Ashwood forest, I might finally be safe enough to matter. I was crouched by the stream that cut through the forest, washing blood from a cut on my forearm, a gift from yesterday's near capture, when I noticed something strange. The pain was fading. Not slowly, the way pain should fade, but rapidly, impossibly. I stared at my arm, confused. The gash was still there, still open, but it looked older somehow, like it had been healing for days instead of hours. I shook my head, dunking my arm in the freezing water. Probably just exhaustion playing tricks. Probably just. The snap of a branch behind me made my heart stop. I spun, water dripping from my fingers, and found myself staring at a man who looked like he'd walked straight out of a war. His armor was scarred and dented, dark leather worn soft with use. Dark hair fell across a face that was all hard angles and harder experience. But it was his eyes that held me frozen, grey as storm clouds, assessing me with the cold precision of someone who knew exactly what I was worth. A hunter. My body screamed at me to run, but I was so tired. 5 years of running, of hiding, of waking up in cold sweats wondering if today would be the day they finally caught me. I couldn't do it anymore. "You're the silver blood," he said. Not a question. A statement. I lifted my chin, trying to summon some shred of dignity even as fear clawed up my throat. "If you're here to kill me, just do it. I'm tired of running." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. He opened his mouth to respond, and that's when I heard it. The whistle of arrows cutting through air. "Down," he roared, and before I could process the command, he was moving. Not away from me. Toward me. He shoved me to the ground as the first volley flew, and I hit the leaf-strewn earth hard enough to knock the breath from my lungs. I looked up just in time to see crowned soldiers emerging from the trees like ghosts, their crossbows already reloading. The hunter, the man who'd been sent to capture me, turned to face them. Turned his back on me. Gave me the chance to run. But he didn't run. The second volley came faster than thought. The first arrow took him in the shoulder with a meaty thunk that made my stomach heave. He staggered but didn't fall. The second punched through a gap in his chest armor, and I heard him grunt, a sound of pain so raw it bypassed my ears and went straight to my bones. "No," I whispered, but the word was lost in the chaos. Third arrow. Fourth. Fifth. His side. His thigh. His arm. Each impact twisted him, broke him, but still he stood between me and death, a wall of flesh and failing will. "Run," he gasped, blood bubbling at his lips. "Run, damn you." The sixth arrow sprouted from his back, and the seventh found his shoulder blade with brutal finality. He dropped like a felled tree, crashing into the carpet of autumn leaves, and the world slowed to a crawl. I could see the arrows jutting from his body, 7 shafts of wood and iron that had been meant for me. Could see his blood spreading like spilled wine across the rust and gold leaves. Could see his chest rising and falling in shallow, desperate gasps. The soldiers were reloading. Advancing. They'd finish him and then come for me, and we'd both die here in the cold and the smoke and the silence. Something inside me cracked open. I scrambled to him on hands and knees, my fingers finding his face, his neck, the horrible wounds that were stealing his life with every heartbeat. Why? I choked out. Why would you? His eyes found mine, grey fading to ash. Couldn't let them. Princess, a soldier shouted, triumph in his voice. The silver blood is ours. No. The word echoed through my skull with the force of a hammer blow. No. 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 He'd chosen to save me. A stranger. A hunter sent to capture me had thrown his life away to give me a chance, and I would be damned if I let him die for nothing. My hands pressed flat against his chest, over the worst of the wounds, and I stopped thinking. Stopped questioning. Stopped denying what I'd always known I could do but had been too afraid to truly embrace. Heat erupted from my palms. Silver light, bright as starfire, ancient as the first lunar queens, poured from my hands into his broken body. The soldiers shouted in alarm, but I couldn't hear them anymore. Couldn't hear anything over the roar of power surging through me. Power I'd kept locked away for 17 years finally breaking free. The first arrow began to work its way out of his flesh. Hold on, I whispered, my voice shaking with effort and terror and something that felt dangerously like hope. Just hold on. His blood glowed silver where it touched my skin. His wounds began to close. And somewhere in the chaos and the magic and the impossible choice he'd made, I felt something snap into place between us, a connection that went deeper than gratitude, stronger than debt. A bond. The soldiers were closing in, weapons raised, but I couldn't stop now. Wouldn't stop. He'd given me everything. The least I could do was give him his life back, even if it killed me. The silver light blazed brighter, a beacon in the dying autumn day, and the forest itself seemed to respond. Howls split the air, not dogs, but wolves. Real wolves, emerging from the shadows with teeth bared and eyes gleaming. They formed a circle around us, protecting us, protecting me. I pulled the second arrow free, felt his body shudder under my hands, and poured more power into the wound. The world was starting to spin, my vision blurring at the edges, but I couldn't stop. Not yet. Not while he still needed me. For more arrows. For more chances to fail. They formed a circle around us, protecting us, protecting me. I pulled the second arrow free, felt his body shudder under my hands, and poured more power into the wound. The world was starting to spin, my vision blurring at the edges, but I couldn't stop. Not yet. Not while he still needed me. For more arrows. For more chances to fail. But I'd been running my whole life, and I was done running. If this was my power, then I'd use it. If this was my destiny, then I'd face it. And if saving him meant revealing exactly what I was to the entire kingdom, then let them see. Let them all see what the hidden Luna could do. The world narrowed to three things: the arrows in his body, the silver light pouring from my hands, and the sound of soldiers shouting as they tried to break through the wolf circle. I pulled the third arrow free, and his back arched off the ground with a strangled cry that nearly shattered my concentration. Blood welled up, dark and thick, but the silver light followed my touch, sealing the wound from the inside out. I could feel it, every torn muscle fiber knitting back together, every severed vessel reconnecting. It was intimate in a way that made my chest ache, like I was learning the map of his body through pain and healing. Please, I whispered, though I didn't know if I was begging him to hold on or begging the magic to be enough. Please don't leave. A wolf snarled viciously somewhere to my left. Steel clashed against fang. The soldiers were trying to push through, but the wolves, my wolves, somehow, impossibly mine, held the line. I couldn't think about that now. Couldn't think about anything except the fourth arrow lodged deep in his thigh. This one was worse. I could feel it scraping against bone, could sense the damage radiating outward like cracks in ice. My hands shook as I gripped the shaft, and for a moment, doubt crashed over me. What if I couldn't do this? What if my power wasn't strong enough? What if? His hand found my wrist, weak, trembling. But there. Don't stop, he breathed, his grey eyes finding mine through the pain. Don't stop. The trust in those words nearly undid me. He was dying because of me, and still he had faith I could save him. I pulled. The arrow came free with a wet sound that would haunt my nightmares, but I was already flooding the wound with silver light, pushing deeper than before, feeling my way through torn tissue and damaged vessels. The magic responded, eager, hungry. It wanted to heal, wanted to fix what was broken. But it was taking so much. Every wound I closed drained something vital from me, like I was pouring my own life force into his body to keep it beating. Fire, a soldier commanded, and I heard the thunk of crossbow triggers. The wolves lunged, intercepting. Yelps of pain mixed with human screams. I squeezed my eyes shut, tears tracking through the dirt on my cheeks. They were dying for me. He was dying for me. And all I could do was keep healing, keep giving, keep hoping it would be enough. 5th arrow. This one in his side, dangerously close to vital organs. My vision swam as I grasped it. The forest tilted sickeningly, and I realized with distant alarm that I was reaching my limit. The magic was limitless, but my body wasn't. I was 17 years old and I'd never done more than close small cuts and ease fevers. This was something else entirely. This was bringing someone back from death's door. Almost there, I told him, told myself. Just 2 more. Just hold on for 2 more. I pulled the arrow free and pressed both palms flat against the wound. The silver light blazed so bright I could see it through my closed eyelids, could feel it burning through my veins like liquid starlight. My mother's voice echoed from some half-forgotten memory. The lunar gift is love made manifest, daughter. It heals because it cares. I cared. God's help me. I cared so much it was tearing me apart. The wound closed. His breathing steadied fractionally. 6th arrow. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip it. This one was in his back, buried deep between his shoulder blades. I had to roll him slightly onto his side, and the movement made him groan, a sound of agony that I felt in my bones. I'm sorry, I sobbed. I'm so sorry, I'm almost done, just, not, your fault, he managed. Each word seemed to cost him. My choice. Why? The question screamed through my mind. Why would you choose this? Why would you throw your life away for someone you don't even know? But there was no time for questions. No time for anything except the arrow in my hands and the fading light in his eyes. I pulled. This time, something in me tore. I felt it like a physical ripping, some internal barrier giving way, and the silver light exploded outward in a wave that sent soldiers stumbling back. The magic was pouring from me now, uncontrolled and desperate, flooding into his body with such force that I could see his veins glowing through his skin. Too much. It was too much. I was going to kill us both. But I couldn't stop. Didn't know how to stop. The power had a will of its own now, drawn to his injuries like water flowing downhill, and all I could do was hold on and pray. The 6th wound sealed. His heartbeat grew stronger. And somehow, impossibly, I was still conscious. One more. Just one more arrow. I found it with trembling fingers, the 7th and final shaft, buried in his shoulder. This one had gone deep, puncturing muscle and scraping collarbone. It would be the hardest to heal. The one most likely to break me. The soldiers had stopped trying to attack. I could feel their stares, hear their whispered prayers and curses. They'd never seen silver blood magic before. None of them had. It had been forbidden, hunted to extinction, erased from living memory. Until now. Until me. I wrapped both hands around the arrow shaft, and for just a moment, I let myself look at his face. Really look at him. Dark stubble shadowed his jaw. A scar cut through his left eyebrow. He had the kind of face that had seen too much, survived too much, and still somehow held on to something human. He'd saved me. Now I would save him. I pulled the last arrow free and gave him everything I had left. The silver light became blinding, a pillar of ancient magic reaching toward the smoke-stained sky. I felt the wound closing, felt his body accepting the healing, felt the life pouring back into him with every second. But I also felt myself fading, my consciousness slipping away like sand through open fingers. The world tilted, darkened. I collapsed forward onto his chest, my cheek pressing against the torn leather of his armor. His heartbeat thundered in my ear, strong, steady, alive. The silver light faded to embers, then to nothing. The last thing I heard before darkness claimed me was his voice, rough with pain but unmistakably amazed. What have you done? I didn't dream. There was no room for dreams in the exhausted void where I floated, too drained even for unconsciousness to be restful. But somewhere in that darkness, I became aware of things. Warmth against my back, the steady rise and fall of breathing that wasn't mine. A heartbeat syncing with my own, 2 rhythms finding harmony. And something else. Something new. A thread of silver light connecting me to another soul, binding us together in a way that went beyond gratitude or debt. I could feel him, feel his pain easing, his strength returning, his wonder and confusion at still being alive, the life-debt bond. It had to be. I'd saved him with silver blood magic, and now we were connected in ways I didn't fully understand. I should have been terrified, should have been horrified at what I'd bound myself to. Instead, I felt safe. Time passed in that strange half-aware state. Hours, maybe. The sounds of battle faded. The wolf's presence remained, vigilant guardians in the darkness. And through it all, his arms stayed locked around me, holding me as I'd held him, refusing to let go. When dawn finally came, grey and cold, I surfaced slowly from the depths of exhaustion. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My magic was a guttered candle, barely a flicker. But I was alive. We were both alive. I tried to move and couldn't. Tried to open my eyes and managed only slits. Enough to see the forest around us, leaf-strewn ground, scattered arrows, dark stains that could have been blood or could have been shadows. The wolves were still there. 3 of them, massive and grey, watching the perimeter with eyes too intelligent to be merely animal. They looked at me and I felt a jolt of recognition, of connection. Mine. They were mine now, bound by the same magic that had saved a stranger's life. Don't move. The voice was rough, scraped raw, but it sent a shock of awareness through me. He was awake. And I was lying on top of him like. I tried to push myself up and my arms gave out immediately. Strong hands caught me, steadied me, kept me from face-planting into his chest. I said don't move, he repeated, and there was something almost amused in his tone despite the pain that had to be coursing through him. You nearly killed yourself saving me. The least you can do is rest. My voice came out as a croak. I tried again. You're alive. Thanks to you. I managed to lift my head enough to look at him properly. His face was pale, drawn with exhaustion, but his eyes were clear. Alert. Focused on me with an intensity that made something flutter in my chest. The arrows, I whispered. Are they gone? He shifted slightly, and I saw him wince. The wounds are closed. Scarred, but closed. He trailed off, seeming to search for words. What you did shouldn't be possible. I'm silver blood, I said simply, as if that explained everything. Maybe it did. His expression shifted, recognition, understanding, and something that might have been awe. The lunar heir. You're the one they're hunting. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. I was hired to capture you, he said, and waited for my reaction. I should have panicked. Should have tried to run. But I was too exhausted, and besides, you saved me instead. I did. Why? The question hung between us, heavy with implications. He could have let the arrows find me, could have collected his bounty and walked away with a clear conscience. Instead, he'd chosen death. For me. A stranger. I don't know, he admitted, and the honesty in his voice made my throat tight. I saw them draw on you and I just moved. Didn't think. Just knew I couldn't let them. A wolf's warning growl cut him off. All 3 animals were on their feet, hackles raised, staring into the forest. We weren't alone anymore. Can you stand? He asked urgently. I don't know. Then hold on. He sat up, bringing me with him, and I bit back a gasp as the world spun. His arms locked around me, keeping me upright. We need to move. Now. Through the trees, I heard voices. Boots on leaves. The systematic approach of a search party. They were coming back. And this time, there would be no mercy. Kael moved like a man who hadn't just had 7 arrows pulled from his body. He shifted me in his arms, testing his strength, and I felt the tremor that ran through him. Pain, yes, but also something else. Disbelief, maybe. Wonder at still being alive. Can you walk? He asked again, his voice low and urgent. I wanted to say yes. Wanted to be strong enough to stand on my own 2 feet and face whatever was coming. But my body had other ideas. When I tried to put weight on my legs, they buckled like a newborn foal's. He caught me before I hit the ground, his hands steady despite everything. That's what I thought. I'm sorry, I whispered, hating how weak I sounded. I'm slowing you down. You should just, don't. His grey eyes pinned me in place, fierce and unyielding. Don't even finish that sentence. You saved my life. You nearly died doing it. I'm not leaving you to those bastards. The wolves growled in agreement, their eyes fixed on the approaching sounds. Besides, he continued, a grim smile touching his lips, I owe you a life debt now. Where I come from, that's not something you walk away from. Before I could respond, he scooped me up properly, one arm beneath my knees, the other supporting my back. The movement should have hurt him. His body was still healing, still recovering from wounds that would have killed any normal man. But he held me like I weighed nothing, like determination alone could overcome damaged muscle and bone. The wolves, I managed as he started moving through the forest. They're following us. I noticed. He glanced at the 3 massive animals padding alongside us, silent as shadows. They're yours. I think so. It sounded absurd even to my own ears. They came when I was healing you. When it got out of control. Lunar magic. He navigated around a fallen log without breaking stride. I've heard stories, but I thought they were just myths. Tales to scare children about the old queens and their power. Not myths, I said quietly. Very real. Very dangerous. Very illegal. Behind us, the voices grew louder. Commands shouted in clipped military cadence. They were organizing a proper search pattern now, methodical and thorough. The kind of hunt that wouldn't stop until they found us. Kael changed direction, heading deeper into the forest, away from any trails or paths. The wolves spread out, 2 ranging ahead, 1 following behind. Scouts and rear guard, moving with tactical precision that shouldn't have been possible for wild animals. But they weren't just wild animals anymore. They were pack. My pack. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it felt right in a way I couldn't explain. There's an old hunter's cabin, Kael said, his breathing steady despite carrying me through rough terrain. About 2 miles north. Nobody's used it in years. We can rest there, figure out our next move. They'll track us. Maybe. But we have wolves now. That grim smile again. And I'm very good at not being found when I don't want to be. A shout erupted behind us. Someone had found the battle site, seen the blood, the arrows, the signs of magic. The hunt was truly on now. Kael moved faster, his footfalls sure even on the uneven ground. I could feel his heart pounding against my side, could sense through that strange new connection between us the determination driving him forward. He'd made a choice back there, throwing himself between me and death, and he wasn't about to let that choice be wasted. Your wounds, I said, my hand finding his chest, feeling for injury. Are they healed? He glanced down at me, and there was wonder in his eyes. Completely healed. I can feel the scars, but there's no pain. No weakness. What you did, he shook his head. I've never heard of healing like that. Neither have I admitted. I've never used that much power before. Never had to. How long have you been running? 5 years. Since I was 12. The words came easier than I expected. Maybe it was the exhaustion lowering my defenses, or maybe it was the bond making me trust him. They found the family hiding me. Killed everyone. I barely escaped. His arms tightened around me, protective. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't pull the trigger. I paused, then asked the question that had been burning in my mind since the arrows stopped flying. Why did you do it? Why save me? He was quiet for a long moment, his boots crunching through autumn leaves, his breathing measured despite the exertion. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. I don't know. I've been asking myself that since the moment I stepped in front of those arrows. He navigated around a thick copse of trees, the wolves flowing around us like water. I was hired to track you. Good money. Enough to clear my debts, restore my name. I'd been following you for 3 weeks, and when I finally found you. He trailed off. When you finally found me. I prompted. You weren't what I expected. They described you as a monster, a threat to the kingdom. But you were just a girl, exhausted and alone, drinking from a stream because you had nowhere safe to rest. His jaw clenched. And when those soldiers came, when they drew their weapons, something in me just snapped. I couldn't let them kill you. Couldn't stand by and watch. The honesty in his words made my chest ache. This man, this stranger who'd been hired to capture me, had chosen my life over his own without hesitation. Without even knowing who I really was. I'm the lunar heir, I said quietly. The one they're all hunting. My grandmother was Queen Seraphine. My mother was Princess Eliana. They killed them both. Killed everyone with lunar blood. Except me. He didn't stumble, didn't slow, but I felt the shock ripple through him. The silver blood prophecy. You know it. Every soldier knows it. When silver bleeds to save the fallen, the lost queen shall rise with wolves at her call. He glanced at the animals pacing beside us. 7 arrows. 7 wounds. 7 wolves in the stories. There are only 3, I pointed out. So far. The thought should have been comforting. Instead, it made me shiver. I'd spent 5 years trying to stay hidden, trying to be invisible. Now I'd unleashed magic that lit up the forest like a beacon, bonded wolves to my will, and saved a man from certain death. I couldn't hide anymore. The hidden Luna had been revealed. Ahead, through the trees, I caught a glimpse of weathered wood and a sagging roof. The cabin. Sanctuary, at least for a little while. The lead wolf reached it first, circling the structure, checking for threats. When it sat down by the door and looked back at us, I knew it was safe. Kael pushed through the door, which hung crooked on rusted hinges, and carried me inside. The interior was musty and dark, but it was shelter. A place to rest and recover. He set me down gently on what had once been a hunter's cot, the old canvas sagging but holding. Then he braced his hands on his knees, finally letting himself feel the exhaustion. "Let me see," I said, reaching for him. "I'm fine. You were dying 6 hours ago. Let me see." He relented, stripping off the torn leather chest piece and the shredded shirt beneath. His torso was a map of silver scars, 7 lightning bolt traces across his skin. They glowed faintly in the dim light, marking where my magic had sealed death away. I traced one with my fingertips, marveling at the work my power had done. The scar tissue was smooth, already fully healed in a way that should have taken months. "Does it hurt?" "No." He caught my hand, held it against his chest where I could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong. "But I can feel you." "What?" "Through the bond. I can feel your exhaustion, your fear, your wonder." He tilted his head, studying me. "Is that what I'm feeling from you?" I pulled my hand back, suddenly self-conscious. "The life-debt bond. It connects us. I didn't mean to, I didn't know it would." "Hey." He caught my chin gently, making me look at him. "I'm not complaining. You saved my life. If being connected to you is the price, I'll pay it gladly." Our faces were close, too close. I could see flecks of darker grey in his eyes, could feel his breath on my lips. The bond hummed between us, silver and warm and alive with possibility. A wolf's sharp bark shattered the moment. Kael was on his feet instantly, moving to the window. "They're closer than I thought. Maybe half a mile out." My heart sank. We'd barely had time to catch our breath. "There's something else," he said, his voice tight. "The man leading them. I recognize his voice." "Who is he?" Kael's expression went hard as stone. "My brother. Commander Theron of the Crown Guard." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. His own brother was hunting us. Hunting him. "He won't stop," Kael continued. "He's the best tracker in the kingdom. Relentless. And now that I've betrayed the crown to save you." He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. I forced myself to stand, ignoring how my legs shook with the effort. "Then we keep moving. You can barely walk. I'll manage." I gripped the edge of the cot for support, lifted my chin. "I've been running for 5 years. I'm not about to stop now." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. He nodded once. "Then we run together." The wolves gathered at the door, ready. And behind us, getting closer with every passing moment, the sound of hunting horns split the morning air. The chase had truly begun. Commander Theron stood at the site where his brother should have died and felt something cold settle in his chest. 7 arrows. Pools of blood already turning brown in the dirt. Scattered crossbow bolts. And worst of all, silver residue glowing faintly on the leaves, unmistakable evidence of lunar magic. She healed him. Lieutenant Garrett's voice was tight with disbelief. The silver blood actually healed someone. Theron crouched, running his fingers through the dried blood. His brother's blood. He'd know it anywhere. They'd trained together, bled together, fought side by side for years before Kael had thrown it all away. Before he'd become too soft, too questioning, too willing to see traitors as people rather than threats. "Track them," he ordered, his voice flat and cold. "Double patrols. I want every hunter, every hound, every soldier we have searching these woods." "Sir, the wolves." "I don't care about the wolves." Theron straightened, his hand instinctively moving to the scar on his neck, the one Kael had given him during their last sparring match before everything fell apart. "Find my brother. Find the silver blood. Bring them both to me." Garrett hesitated. "Sir, your orders regarding Kael are unchanged." Theron's jaw clenched. He's chosen his side. He's a traitor now. Treat him as such. The words tasted like ash, but he forced them out anyway. Because this was bigger than brotherhood. Bigger than the boy who'd taught him to fight, who'd covered for him when he broke their father's sword, who'd been the only family that mattered after their parents died. This was about the kingdom. About preventing the prophecy from coming true. About stopping the return of lunar magic that had nearly destroyed everything 2 generations ago. "Move out," he commanded, and tried to ignore the part of him that whispered he was making a terrible mistake. We ran. Or rather, Kael ran, and I stumbled alongside him with his arm locked around my waist, half carrying me through the forest. The wolves ranged around us in a protective formation, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. How close? I gasped, my legs burning with the effort of staying upright. Too close. Kael's voice was grim. Theron knows these woods. Trained in them. He'll have the main roads blocked, the villages watched. We need to head for the border. That's 3 days' travel. Even as I said it, I knew I wouldn't last 3 hours at this pace, let alone 3 days. Through the bond, I felt his worry spike. He knew it too. A horn sounded behind us, closer than before. The wolves' ears swiveled toward the sound, and the largest one, a massive grey male I'd started thinking of a storm, let out a low, threatening growl. There's a ravine ahead, Kael said. River below. It's our best chance to lose them. You mean jump? You have a better idea. I didn't. So we ran harder. The forest opened suddenly onto a cliff edge, and I got a glimpse of churning water far below before Kael pulled me back. We need to time this right. The current's fast here, but there are rocks. An arrow whistled past my ear. Now, Kael shouted, and we were falling before I could think, before I could be afraid, before I could do anything but grab onto him and hope. The impact with the water drove the air from my lungs. Cold, so cold it felt like knives, closed over my head. The current seized us immediately, tumbling us like leaves in a storm. I lost my grip on Kael, lost any sense of up or down, lost everything but the desperate need for air. Something grabbed my cloak. Storm, somehow in the water with us, his powerful jaws locked onto the fabric. He pulled, fighting the current, and my head broke the surface just long enough for me to gasp before we went under again. Then Kael's arms were around me, pulling me against his chest, kicking hard for the surface. We broke through together, and I could see the other 2 wolves swimming strongly beside us, their heads just above the churning water. Breathe, Kael commanded, and I did, great gasping lungfuls of air as the river carried us downstream and away from the soldiers on the cliff above. We must have traveled a mile like that, battered by rocks and debris, before Kael managed to grab an overhanging branch and haul us toward the shore. The wolves scrambled up the muddy bank ahead of us, shaking water from their coats in great silver sprays. I collapsed on solid ground, coughing up river water, my entire body shaking with cold and exhaustion. Kael dropped beside me, his breathing harsh, and for a moment we just lay there, grateful to be alive. That, I finally managed, was insane. Worked, didn't it? He pushed himself up, wincing. The silver scars on his chest were glowing brighter now, pulsing in time with my own heartbeat. Come on. We can't rest long. I know. But when I tried to stand, my legs finally gave out completely. The combination of magical exhaustion, cold water, and pure terror had pushed me past my limits. Kael caught me before I hit the ground. Again. Elara. I'm sorry. The words came out broken, pathetic. I can't, I'm not. Stop. He settled me against a tree trunk, his hands gentle despite the urgency thrumming through the bond. You saved my life. You nearly died doing it. Your body needs time to recover. We don't have time. Then we make time. He looked at the wolves, and I felt something pass between them, not words, exactly, but understanding. Storm moved to sit beside me, his warm bulk a windbreak against the cold. The other 2 took up positions where they could watch our back trail. Kael knelt in front of me, his grey eyes serious. I need you to listen. Really listen. I nodded, too exhausted to do anything else. My brother won't stop. He's been hunting lunar descendants for 5 years, ever since the crown put a price on silver blood. He's good at it, relentless, and he knows me well enough to predict most of my moves. You're saying we can't outrun him? Not like this. Not with you barely able to walk. He took a breath. But I know someone who might help. Someone who owes me a debt bigger than the one I owe you. Who? Elder Mara. She runs a community in the Thornwood Mountains. My breath caught. The Silverwood rebels. His expression shifted. Surprise, then respect. You know about them. Rumors. Stories. Places where lunar loyalists supposedly gather. I leaned forward, hope and fear warring in my chest. Are they real? Very real. And very well hidden. If we can reach them. A distant shout cut him off. Dogs baying. The hunt was still on. Kael stood, offering me his hand. Can you manage a little longer? There's a cave system about 2 miles from here. We can lose them in the tunnels, rest properly. I took his hand, let him pull me up. The bond hummed between us, and I borrowed strength from it, from him, from the determination I could feel radiating through our connection. 2 miles, I agreed. We moved into the forest, the wolves flanking us, and behind us the sounds of pursuit grew steadily closer. But for the first time since the arrows started flying, I felt something other than terror. I felt hope, because I wasn't running alone anymore. I had wolves at my call, magic in my blood, and a man who'd taken 7 arrows for me without hesitation. The hidden Luna was hidden no longer, and whatever came next, we'd face it together. Morning seeped gently into the abandoned hunter's cabin, the pale winter sun filtering through broken slats of wood. Dust motes drifted in the soft light, spinning lazily above Elara's sleeping form. Kael had slept little, his body still exhausted, but his mind sharper than ever. Each time Elara stirred beside the dying embers, his silver-marked wrist pulsed faintly in response. A tether. A truth he was still struggling to understand. She woke slowly, blinking herself back into the world, her breathing shallow but steady. Kael felt the soft brush of her fatigue through the bond, muted but present, like a heartbeat echoing under his own. You slept, he said gently. She nodded, rubbing her eyes. Longer than I meant to. You needed it. Elara pushed herself upright and wandered toward the basin of cold river water Kael had fetched earlier. Her hands were trembling lightly, aftershocks of the healing, but she tried to hide it. She dipped a cloth into the water and rolled up her sleeve to wash her arms. Kael froze. There, on the pale skin of her inner wrist, glowing faintly like moonlit metal, was a silver crescent. Not a scar. Not a wound. A mark. Elara, Kael breathed, stepping closer before he could stop himself. Your wrist. She frowned in confusion, lifting her arm. When she saw it, truly saw it, her breath hitched. It wasn't this bright before. Kael's voice lowered, almost reverent. That mark, I know it. Her eyes widened. You've seen it. In the Royal Guard archives, carved into stone. Worn by queens. Stamped into ancient armor. His hands trembled as he reached but stopped short of touching. It is the mark of Seraphine's bloodline. The symbol of the last Luna. Elara's lips parted, shock rippling through her. I knew I descended from them. But, this, the crescent pulsed once, as if answering. You are not simply descended from them, Kael whispered. You are the heir. The last living direct heir. Elara swayed, gripping the table. No. That can't, I'm just a girl. Kael stepped closer. Just someone running? Elara, everything you've survived, everything you've endured, your healing, the wolves, the bond, barely grazing the glowing mark. This was always your birthright. Her voice was thin. I never asked for any of this. No one asks to be born royal, Kael said softly. But you carry a legacy the crown feared enough to slaughter your entire line. She swallowed hard. And now they'll fear me. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. Elara sank onto the edge of the bed, her heartbeat echoing faintly through the bond. Kael knelt before her, steadying her hands as she trembled. When I trained under Commander Highthorn, he began, we were taught every symbol of the ancient lunar line. Your crescent. It wasn't just a crest, it was tied to a prophecy. Elara's gaze lifted, wary. A prophecy. Kael nodded slowly, repeating the words etched into his memory. When silver bleeds to save the fallen, the lost queen shall rise with wolves at her call. Her breath caught. Silver bleeds. You saved me, Kael said. Silver in your blood. 7 arrows meant for you. Elara's eyes filled. Kael, I didn't save you because of any prophecy. You saved me because that's who you are, he said. And that's why you're meant to lead. She shook her head violently. I'm not strong enough. I barely control my magic. It nearly killed me to heal you. But you lived, Kael insisted. And each use of your power strengthens you. Her expression crumpled. I've been running my whole life, from soldiers, from hunters, from myself. Kael cupped her face gently, the bond pulsing warmth between them. You ran because you had no choice. Now you do. Tears welled in her eyes, fear, exhaustion, disbelief. I don't want to be a queen, she whispered. You don't have to want the crown, Kael murmured. You only have to survive. And right now, embracing who you are is the only way to do that. She leaned into him, shoulders shaking. Everyone I loved died because of this blood. I don't want more people to die for me. Kael pulled her into a tight embrace. Then let's make sure they live for you instead. For the first time, Elara didn't pull away. The bond glowed faintly, silver threading between them like living light. Elara inhaled deeply, steadying herself. If I'm truly the heir, Then there must be people who knew. People who believed. Kael stood. There are rumors. Whispers of lunar loyalists. The Silverwood rebels. Rebels, she repeated. A hidden faction that survived the purge. They've been waiting for a sign. Waiting for you. He met her gaze. They're said to be in the Thornwood Mountains. That's days away, Elara said. 3 days north, Kael confirmed. But dangerous terrain. Patrols everywhere. We'd have to move quickly. Elara hesitated. I'm not trained to lead. I can't even fully control my healing. You'll learn, Kael said. With their help. With mine. She looked at him, really looked. The man who should have turned her in for a bounty. The man who instead took 7 arrows meant for her. The man she saved at the cost of nearly her own life. We need to go, she finally said. Before Theron closes in. Kael nodded. We'll take the old river path. Difficult terrain. They won't expect it. Elara practiced small bursts of her healing magic, closing superficial cuts Kael intentionally made on his arm. Each attempt left her faint, but steadier. More confident. Kael showed her basic defensive stances. How to brace, how to dodge, how to strike. They moved together in an instinctive rhythm guided by the bond, mirroring steps, shared breath, synchronized shifts. As dusk approached, they packed supplies and slipped out of the cabin. Elara paused at the tree line. Kael, she whispered. Do you think I can do this? He touched her silver-marked wrist. I think you already have. Before she could respond, distant howls echoed, low, guttural, unnatural. Not wolves. Hounds. Theron's hounds. Kael's eyes hardened. They found us. Elara grabbed his hand. Then we run, she said, power sparking faintly in her palms. Together, they tore into the forest as the shadows thickened behind them, and the hunt began anew. Branches whipped against Elara's face as they ran, the forest blurring into streaks of green and shadow. Behind them, the crowned soldiers crashed through the underbrush like a flood, shouting commands, snapping twigs, blades gleaming between the trees. Elara's lungs burned, her thoughts tumbling over each other in panic. Every time she stumbled, Kael pulled her back upright, his hand firm and warm around hers. Faster, he urged, breath sharp. They're closing in. Elara tried. She truly did. But fear tangled her steps, her magic crackling under her skin like lightning begging to strike. When a branch ripped her cheek, she gasped, and the wound sealed instantly, leaving only a faint shimmer of silver. Kael saw it. Elara, your magic. I can't control it, she choked. It's reacting on its own. As if to prove her point, the roots beneath their feet pulsed with life. Ferns unfurled in fast motion where her boots struck. Saplings sprouted along the trail behind them, tripping the soldiers who tried to give chase. She hadn't meant to do that. Kael didn't slow, didn't question. His silver scars shimmered faintly beneath torn armor, glowing brighter each time he swung his blade at the soldiers who caught up from the flanks. The bond between them pulsed with each heartbeat, strength surging from her into him, speed bleeding from him into her. They were changing each other, shaping something neither of them yet understood. Left, Kael shouted. They burst through a thicket and skidded to a halt at the edge of a ravine. Sheer drop on their right. Dense soldiers closing in on their left. More ahead, blocking the narrow crossing. Surrounded. And then a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Stand down, Kael. Theron stepped through the soldiers like he owned the earth beneath him. His armor was immaculate, his sword already drawn. His eyes, so like Kael's, but colder, locked onto his brother with sharp disappointment. Give her up, Theron said calmly. End this. Come home. Kael stepped in front of Elara, jaw tight. There is no home for me without her. Theron's mouth curled, something between pity and fury. Then you're a fool. She is my home now, Kael said. Theron attacked first. Steel slammed into steel as the brothers collided, sparks flaring with each brutal strike. Kael moved with a ferocity Elara had never seen before, faster, sharper, his muscles fueled by the bond. But Theron was trained for war since childhood, relentless and precise. Every blow Kael landed, Theron matched with double the force. Elara backed away as the soldiers closed in on her, their blades drawn. Fear strangled her, but worse was the panic echoing through the bond as Kael struggled against Theron's onslaught. She couldn't lose him. Not after everything he'd already given for her. The first arrow came without warning. It hissed through the air. Elara dodged, but the shaft grazed her arm. Pain split through her, sharp, searing, and silver blood splashed across the ground. Her blood glowed. The earth responded. The soil beneath her feet trembled. Roots burst upward, splitting stone, whipping through the air like living serpents. Vines thickened and curled around the soldiers' ankles, yanking them off balance. Branches bent unnaturally, striking out like fists. Elara stared in horror. No, no, stop. But the magic wasn't listening. It wasn't healing now, it was protecting, defending, warring. Soldiers screamed as vines ripped weapons from their hands. One tried to swing at her, but the roots coiled around his wrist, twisting until he dropped the blade. Leaves exploded outward in a green shockwave, knocking 3 men flat. She was commanding life itself, and it exhilarated her, and it terrified her. The bond blazed. Kael staggered as Theron slammed a knee into his ribs. Blood stained Kael's mouth. Elara felt the pain as if it were happening inside her own chest. No, she whispered. Kael. Theron raised his sword for a killing strike. Elara didn't think. She didn't plan. She lifted both hands. Silver erupted from her palms in a burst so bright it turned the world white. The shockwave slammed into Theron like a hammer, hurling him backward into a boulder. The soldiers behind him went flying like leaves in a storm. Theron crumpled, stunned, blood trickling from his temple, but alive. Elara's knees buckled at the effort. Kael, run. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the cliff edge. More soldiers spilled into the clearing from every direction, shouting as they spotted the pair silhouetted against the drop. Below the cliff, a river roared, far, far below. Kael turned to her, eyes burning. Elara. She met his gaze, breath ragged. Do you trust me? With my life, he whispered. The bond thrummed between them, powerful and alive. Arrows flew. Soldiers charged. Elara and Kael stepped back, and jumped. Wind howled around them as they plummeted. The world spun, sky, trees, a blur of terror and adrenaline. Elara wrapped her arms around Kael's neck, pressing her forehead to his. He tightened his grip around her waist, holding her as if he could shield her from the fall itself. I'm here, he murmured into her hair. I'm right here. Elara reached for her magic. Not the wild, uncontrolled explosion from moments ago, but something gentler, softer, like a whisper instead of a scream. Silver light enveloped them just before they struck the water. The impact should have shattered bones. Instead, the river wrapped around them like cold silk, slowing their descent. Pain still tore through their limbs, the current battering them against rocks and dragging them downstream, but they were alive. Finally, the current spit them out onto a muddy bank miles away. Kael coughed, water pouring from his lungs. Elara collapsed beside him, shaking. For a long while, neither spoke. Then Kael rolled onto his side, reaching for her. You saved me. Again. She let out a breathless, exhausted laugh. We saved each other. The bond pulsed, warm, steady, fierce. Alive. Just like them. Cold air scraped Elara's lungs as she forced her eyes open. The world swayed in a haze of river mist and pain, every muscle trembling from exhaustion. She lay sprawled on a muddy bank, Kael half collapsed beside her, one arm still wrapped protectively around her waist. The river roared behind them, uncaring that it had nearly killed them both. Elara, Kael rasped, barely conscious. Stay awake. I'm trying, she whispered. Footsteps crunched through leaves. Not soldiers. These steps were slower, measured, deliberate. Figures emerged from the tree line. 5, then 7, bows drawn, blades unsheathed. Cloaks of dark green and ash grey. Faces marked with old scars and streaks of forest paint. Not crown soldiers. Rebels. One man, a scout with a wolf pelt cloak, stepped forward. His eyes flicked between their exhausted bodies, and his expression changed the moment he saw Kael's forearm. Silver scars glowed faintly beneath torn armor. Then he saw Elara's wrist. The silver crescent there pulsed like moonfire. 2 rebels gasped. One dropped to a knee, whispering, by the goddesses, it's her. The hidden Luna. Another breathed. The air. Elara tried to push herself up, panic sparking in her chest. Wait, we're not. You're safe, the wolf-cloak scout said, lowering his bow. His voice shook with awe. We've searched 17 years for the bloodline of Seraphine. And now she washes up on our river. Elara stared, stunned. Kael struggled to rise, placing himself protectively between her and the rebels. One of them raised his hands in peace. We mean no harm to the heir or the silver-marked. The title struck Kael like a blow, silver-marked, as if they had known something he didn't. More rebels emerged from the trees, surrounding them, but not with hostility. With reverence. With hope. "We take them to Elder Mara," the wolf-cloak said. "Quickly. The soldiers will be tracking the river." They lifted Kael to his feet, supporting Elara as they guided her into the forest, deeper, deeper still, until the world closed around them in towering silverbark trees. Mist rolled across the forest floor, glowing faintly as moonlight reflected off leaves. At last they stepped into a clearing. Elara's breath caught. An entire hidden village lay within the ancient woods, tents stitched from wolf hide, cabins carved into trees, fire pits where families huddled. Children chased each other between roots. Fighters sharpened blades around a central stone. The air hummed with life, magic, and something older. Every face turned toward Elara. And as they saw the crescent mark glowing on her wrist, whispers rippled through the camp like a rising wind. "The heir. Seraphine's blood. She's returned." Elara swallowed hard, overwhelmed. Kael placed a steadying hand on her back. "They've been waiting for you," he murmured. She wished she felt ready for that. They led her to a cabin grown into the trunk of a massive oak. Smoke curled from a small chimney, carrying the scent of herbs. Inside, the room was dimly lit by candles arranged in a circle. At the center stood an elderly woman with silver-white hair braided down her back. Her posture was straight despite countless years, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. Elder Mara. The moment she saw Elara, the old woman exhaled sharply, as if struck. "So," Mara whispered, "the river returns what the crown tried to bury." Elara shivered. Mara approached slowly, her fingers grazing the air near Elara's wrist. "This mark. I have seen it only once before. On your grandmother." Her voice trembled. "You have her eyes. Her spirit." "I'm not," Elara began, but Mara raised a hand. "Prove it," she said simply. "Not for us. For yourself." Elara's heart pounded. "What if I can't?" "Then we will help you find what sleeps inside you," Mara replied. "But you must show us something first." Kael stepped forward. "She doesn't have to." "Yes, she does," Mara murmured. "A queen cannot be carried. She must stand." Elara closed her eyes, opening her palm. Her magic stirred, soft, hesitant, like a wounded creature unsure whether to trust. She focused on Kael, on his bruises, his battered ribs, on his pain echoing inside her through the bond. Her palm glowed. Soft silver enveloped Kael's injuries. The bruises faded. His breathing eased. The pain receded from the bond like a tide being pulled back. When Elara opened her eyes, Elder Mara was crying silently. "You are Seraphine's granddaughter," Mara whispered. "Without doubt. You hold her gift, her compassion, her strength." The council, half a dozen rebels of different ages, stepped forward, murmuring among themselves. "Is she ready? Can she lead? She's so young." The prophecy said she would return with silver in her blood and a guardian marked by sacrifice. Their eyes drifted to Kael. The faint silver glow that still lingered on his scars seemed brighter in the candlelight. The bond between him and Elara shimmered faintly, threads of silver light linking their bodies in a way visible even to those without magic. "A life-debt bond," Mara whispered, "forged in blood and sacrifice. Such bonds are older than the crown itself." Elara felt her cheeks warm. She stepped forward, raising her chin despite the tremble in her hands. "I'm not a queen," she said softly. "I'm just a girl who's tired of running." Mara smiled through tears. "Then you are already braver than most who take the crown. Queens are not born, child. They are forged." Kael moved to her side. "She's stronger than any royal I've served," he said, voice low but firm. "She saved my life twice. She commanded wolves. She stood against Theron and lived." Mara's gaze softened as she studied the two of them. "Then we begin." The next weeks passed in a whirlwind. Elara woke before dawn each day to train with the rebel fighters. They taught her how to wield a blade, how to duck and strike, how to move her feet like the wolves she could command. Kael trained beside her, mirroring her stance, correcting her grip, matching her breath. The bond made them a unit. When she misstepped, he compensated. When he pushed too hard, she steadied him. They moved like two halves of one blade. After combat, Elder Mara trained her in magic. Elara learned how to guide her power instead of letting it explode uncontrolled. She practiced healing not through panic, but intention, closing wounds, easing pain, stopping poison. And then she learned the deeper lunar arts, sensing life, calling animals, listening to the forest's pulse. For the first time, she felt in control. She was becoming someone new, someone stronger. And in the quiet moments, between training, between exhaustion and sunrise, she and Kael found each other. A hand brushing against a hand. A silent shared breath after a long day. A moment where he tucked a stray curl behind her ear, hesitant, careful, as though she might break. They didn't speak of it. There was too much at stake. But the bond pulsed warm each time they touched, as if it knew the truth before they did. Near the end of the third week, a horn sounded at the edge of camp. Not a call of welcome. A warning. A scout sprinted into the clearing, face pale. Elder Mara. News from the capital. Mara stood. Speak. The crown. The scout swallowed hard. They know where Silverwood is. They are raising an army. Silence fell. Elara's stomach knotted. Kael stepped forward, eyes dark. How long until they reach us? Days, the scout said. Perhaps less. Elara felt the weight of every life in the forest settle onto her shoulders. The running was over. War was coming. And she, tired, scared, still learning, was the only Luna left to face it. The moment Elara stepped onto the wooden platform, the entire Silverwood camp fell silent. Hundreds of rebels, warriors, healers, elders, children, stood packed into the clearing, faces lit by torchfire, breath misting in the cold dawn. Hope clung to the air like a living thing. They'd all heard the whispers. They'd all seen the mark. They'd all waited 17 long years for this moment. But Elara's legs still trembled. Her heart hammered wildly against her ribs. She felt Kael behind her, steady and unmoving, but she forced herself not to lean back into him. Not now. Not when they needed a Luna, not a frightened girl. She took a breath. It shook. Her voice faltered. Hundreds of eyes watched her. She swallowed and tried again. I was not raised to be a queen. A ripple passed through the crowd. I was raised hunted. Alone. Scared. Running from soldiers who wanted my blood spilled on stone so no one would remember my name. Her voice steadied, growing stronger with each word. I grew up believing I had no power. No family. No future. She placed a hand over her heart. And maybe, part of me still believes that sometimes. The honesty hung heavy in the air, raw, vulnerable. She lifted her wrist so the silver crescent caught the torchlight. Gasps swept through the camp. But the truth is this, I am Elara, daughter of Princess Ileana, granddaughter of Queen Seraphine. A murmur of awe. They took my family. Her voice sharpened. They took my childhood. The forest seemed to listen, holding its breath. And then they tried to take my life. She stepped closer to the edge of the platform. But they could not take my blood. They could not take my power. And they will never take my right. A fierce, bright fire lit her eyes. I will reclaim what was stolen. Not for revenge. She swept her gaze across the gathered faces. But for justice. For every life they destroyed. For every child they hunted. For every wolf they chained. The roar that answered her shook the leaves from the branches. Cheers. Cries. Fists raised. Wolves in the shadows howled in answer, their voices blending with the rising storm of the rebellion. One by one, rebels dropped to their knees. Elder Mara bowed first, old hands trembling. Long live the Lunar Queen. Then the warriors. Then the families. Then even the youngest children, kneeling with tiny fists over their hearts. Kael approached last. He went down on one knee, head lowered, his silver scars blazing as though lit from within. When he lifted his eyes to hers, the intensity of the bond cracked through her like lightning. My queen, he said quietly. My life. Elara's breath caught. The hidden Luna had risen. Hours later, after the crowd dispersed and preparations for war resumed, Elara followed Kael into the heart of the forest. There, hidden beneath ancient roots, stood the Lunar Temple, a stone circle carved with symbols older than any living rebel. Candles flickered against moss-covered walls. Silver light pooled in grooves etched into the stone floor, tracing constellations only her bloodline could read. Here, everything felt quieter, heavier, real. Kael stood only a few steps away, but the space between them felt charged, alive. Elara touched the wall, letting its ancient warmth seep into her fingers. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I, Kael answered. She turned to him. The torchlight painted his features in gold and shadow, the man who had taken 7 arrows for her, who had fought his brother for her, who had chosen her long before she chose herself. I meant what I said, she murmured. I never wanted a throne. Or this power. Or any of this. But you're facing it anyway. Kael stepped closer. That's what makes you worthy of it. The bond pulsed softly, like a heartbeat shared between them. She reached out, fingers trembling, brushing the edge of his scars. When you took those arrows, I felt each one. Kael's breath hitched. I know. I didn't realize it then, but, when you healed me, I could feel you in the pain. I thought I was dying, but then your fear hit me. Your determination. Your power. He cupped her cheek gently, thumb brushing away the last remnant of river dirt. I would take 1,000 arrows for you, he said. I don't want you to, she whispered. I want you with me. Alive. He smiled, soft, aching. Then I'll try my best to stay that way. The distance between them dissolved. His forehead touched hers, breath mingling. The bond flared, a warm surge that filled the temple with shimmering silver light. Elara, he whispered. She kissed him. It started soft, tentative, as though both were afraid to break the moment. Then it deepened, fierce and desperate, the kind of kiss that burned through fear and softened grief. Magic swelled around them in silver currents, swirling in the air like falling stars. The temple itself seemed to hum in approval. When they finally parted, she rested her palms on his chest, right over the 7 scars. We're bound now, she said softly. In every way that matters. The realization settled over her like armor. All her life she'd run alone. But Lunar Queens, she remembered from the old texts, were never meant to rule alone. They had partners. Equals. Consorts bound by magic and love. She looked into Kael's eyes and felt certainty settle in her bones. He is mine, she thought. And I am his. Dawn broke in shimmering streaks of silver and gold over the Silverwood forest. Rebels trained in the clearing, sharpening weapons, repairing armor, whispering prayers to ancestors long gone. Elara stood at the forest's edge, wind tangling her hair, silver light dancing across her fingertips. Wolves padded around her, sleek, powerful, watching her with unwavering loyalty. She felt the bond hum the moment Kael approached. He stood beside her, scars glowing faintly. They're gathering near the river, he said. Scouts saw crown banners. Elara inhaled deeply. The air tasted of pine and impending war. Elder Mara approached with her staff. Villages across the kingdom rise in your name. Farmers, miners, healers, they come because they believe in you. Elara's chest tightened. In me? Or in the idea of me? Both, Mara said. They're calling you the Silver Queen. The one who heals with one hand, and fights with the other. Elara looked down at Kael's chest, tracing the 7 scars with her fingertips. 7 arrows, she murmured. 7 scars. 7 trials. Kael's smile was a quiet spark. We've survived the first. Only 6 left. Elara lifted her chin, determination burning through her fear. Then let's begin. They turned toward the assembled rebels. An army, hundreds strong and growing, stretched across the clearing. Wolves howled from treetops and rocks. Moonlight spilled across Elara's shoulders like a blessing. She raised her hand. Silver erupted skyward in a brilliant column of light, slicing through the dawn like a beacon. A signal. A promise. A declaration. The hidden Luna had risen, and she was coming to reclaim her throne. Far beyond the forest, the capital walls glowed under a stormy sky. Across the battlements, crowned soldiers tightened their ranks, and atop the highest tower, Theron stood staring into the horizon, jaw clenched. A flicker of silver light broke through the clouds, faint, distant, unmistakable. His breath caught. Elara, he whispered. And Kael. He closed his eyes, grief and fury twisting inside him. Let them come. We'll see whose blood runs truest, silver or steel. Welcome to our channel. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Your support turns one hidden Luna into a rising queen. Tell us in comments if you want next chapter of Elara's story.